All right, so we're going to change the brakes, or at least take the brake caliper off and look and inspect the brakes. But we're going to take it a step further in this video. We're going to check the emergency brakes behind the rotor on the rear of this 2007 Ford Econoline van. Now I know there are plenty of brakes out there, plenty of brake jobs. Probably the easiest thing to do automotive-wise, next to changing a tire. But we don't have a video on it, so we're going to do it. All right, we're going to try out our new sockets from Walmart, our Heart brand. Just kidding, we don't do it on this channel. I just want to show you what size socket, metric-wise, fits your standard Econoline lug nuts, and that'd be 22 millimeter. Now, of course, this is a standard size, but 22 just happens to fall right if you have metric. All right, we got the lug nuts off. Let's see what we're looking at back here. And now, this is the full floating. So this is the E350. This is the full floating rear end, and you know that from this hub sticking out right here. Most people don't know what full floating means. Full floating means that you can pull this axle out by removing these bolts here, pull the axle out, and this hub will free spin independently from the rear axle. That means that the hub is fully floating on the rear end housing itself. That means there's a bearing here and a bearing back here on this hub, and the hub rotates only on the housing of the rear end. In this case, the Dana 60 rear end. And then these bolts come out, and there's a gasket here, and this axle can be removed while the tire and the rim is still on the vehicle. You can remove this axle, and you can service the axle or check it and change it if you had to, without even jacking up the vehicle. That's what that means. So fully floating to me means, I'm sure there are more technical terms for it for know-it-alls out there. The technical meaning of it to me is that it operates, the bearings are independent from the rear axle itself. So what we're looking at here is the brake caliper here, and we're going to replace this brake caliper as we already replaced it once a couple of days ago. And we're replacing it again because I feel that we have a faulty caliper here. And we have that because this caliper it's locking up. It's holding onto the brake itself, staying engaged. And it's not supposed to be that tight. The other side is okay. The rest of the vehicle is okay. This caliper is a subpar caliper. It is an auto parts store subpar caliper, and sometimes they don't get it right. Sometimes they're a little factory with their poor quality control just don't get it right, and you wind up paying money for their mistakes. But in this case, it's a lifetime warranty, so it's coming off and it's going to go back. That's what I observed just now, and my suspicions were correct about it locking up. Now, it isn't as bad as the original caliper had other problems. This one has its own problems, as in it's locking up slightly. This means that they probably left some rust or some rust formed inside the cylinders inside of the caliper itself from the factory, or scars or something like that, that is keeping the pistons, there's two pistons, one, two, that's keeping the pistons tight against this. It's not retracting. And it should only retract a little bit just to stop drag. In this case, it's dragging pretty good. So we are going to first take our big pry bar, a big screwdriver in my case. This is what I like to use. We're going to stick it in the brakes here. And the idea is to get it to fall between like this, right? But in this sight right here, to get it to go inside the rotor here. So that's what you want to get it to do. Okay, we got it. Now, in my case, it has to go in an extreme angle. This means that my brakes are a little bit more worn down. Okay. So I'll pull it like this, slowly. You'll notice that brakes are relieving right now. This means that all the fluid is being diverted through the line back to the front of the truck into the reservoir where you pour the brake fluid in originally. Okay, so now it's loose. Right now I can take this caliper off. It's not sandwiching against the rotor. Right, so y'all get what I'm doing here real quick. All right, so sometimes you have a star bit on the end here for your bolts. This is to remove your caliper from your caliper bracket. Don't confuse the two. It's not one assembly. The auto parts store tries to sell it to you as one assembly now. Back in the day, they didn't do that. They used to sell just the caliper. And you guess you can still get just the caliper. Now, the caliper's held on by these two 13mm bolts in my case. And in some cases, Ford factory might have what looks like a rounded bolt here, but on the inside is this little star. I'm not sure exactly what size that star is, but if I can remember correctly, like a T45, I think. So a T45 on the end of a ratchet would also work for the ones that do. But the auto parts store is trying to upgrade all these to bolts, I guess, because it's just easier. So that's what we got, 13. And we're going to get to these bolts and get them off, and we'll come back. See the bolts coming loose? It's one of your bolts from the factory. I mean, from the auto parts store, right? So I guess they made a grade A bolt here and sold it to you and coated it with something. That's nice. Stop rust. Yep, you got to remove both of these. These aren't the kind of calipers where you can just pry out the bottom and have it rock open for you. No, it doesn't want to do that. It gives you the idea that you could do that, but you can't. So it's a little tight underneath the leaf spring here, but you can get to it all with a ratchet. You could get to it with a wrench too, but you'll be here for a while. All right, so we got the other out. And this thing's just kind of hanging loose right here. The caliper is hanging loose inside the caliper bracket. It's just kind of hung on by these little fingers. If you're here just to change your brakes, you're already 50% there, or more almost. Because really all you have to do is remove this piece, and I'll show you what we're doing. Okay, I got a bucket here. You can use whatever you want to take this caliper and set it down on that bucket so I don't rip the line here. I want to be careful not to rip the brake line here. It's rubber, okay? I don't want to let it just dangle there like some folks do. Some folks just let it dangle on the brake line. That's kind of not a good idea in my book. So in this case, I mean, what I might be able to do is set it on this jack, since my helper jacked it up so damn close to where I'm working. I could use the jack as a stand. All right, so this is all you have to do to change the brakes, if that's all you're here for. So here's your inner pad. Set down, pull it out this way. And here's your outer pad. Like that. Okay. As you can see, my inner pad's worn down a little bit more than my outer pad. That doesn't make me feel too good. It makes me feel like there's some problem here. All right, recap. If you're here just to have changed your brakes, we're done already. All you have to do is put your brakes on and then put your caliper back on. And then you didn't even have to put any fluid in this thing. You didn't have to even mess with brake fluid. All you had to do was pry the caliper back, put the pads in, and you're done. That's what a shop would do in most cases. Just that simple. But if you're ready to take it a step further, we're going to remove this bracket, tell you what size bolts there are. In this case, we have a bracket shield back here. My cameraman wants to show you. There's a shield right here, which means there are some nuts right here that hold the shield on. And then there's a bolt that has a stud attached that you remove. It's the same. These two would be the same size. But you have to remove the shield first, then you have to remove the bolts. We'll show you that in a second. Then we got to remove this bracket, caliper bracket. And then we can take the rotor off, and we can show you the brakes behind this, which are the emergency brakes. And we're going to inspect those because we suspect we also could have some worn parts, and our pads are worn. So we're going to check those.
18mm?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's an 18mm for these bracket bolts, or I should say the nuts on here. Seem like they're kind of locking nuts too. They're tight the whole way through. So seem like they could be like kind of a locking nut to stop vibration from taking them off. All right, so we remove the bracket. Comes off this way. Faces backwards for some reason. I guess it's a shield, a dust shield, a water shield, some maybe to stop the rotors from getting warped quickly. And now we have our nuts and studs, and those are 18mm as well. All right, caliper bracket bolts, pretty simple. We'll come back after we get this off. All right, here's the caliper bracket. bolts. Put that to the side there. It's pretty simple stuff. This is your hardware clips, in case you need to take a mental note on how they go on. Sometimes these will turn you around backwards a little bit, especially if they fall off or if you don't have any. And remember, this is the right side of the vehicle. So this is the passenger side that we're doing just for reference. Okay. All right. And here we are dealing with the rotor. Let's take a look. You're here for emergency brakes. Okay, now you want to wiggle this good to get it off because there's a spring-loaded brake in there, and if they're jammed on really tight, you wind up shearing the pins off for the shoes. Okay. There we go. Okay. So what do we got here? All right. Here we go. That's what we got.
Somewhere?
Oh no, buddy. Take a good look. I'm glad we took this off. What I didn't want to find is in here. See what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Look at the shoes.
They're coated.
They're coated in oil.
Mm.
So what is the problem we have here?
A seal?
That's right.
A rear wheel seal?
That's right. If they're coated in oil like this, we have a rear wheel seal that is out. Right?
Yeah. That's the only way that wheel could get back there.
That's right. Let me clean some of this crap up a little bit before we open this and go in here. All right, we're switching focuses back to the caliper, or back to the caliper. We're going to get to this later, to the hub bushing or the hub seal. But for right now, this is our caliper that we got from the auto parts store. It's got some numbers right here. I don't know what that is. But yeah, it's definitely looks different than the other. You can tell that it's been sitting in a junkyard for a while and getting eroded. And then they blasted it, I guess, and then they painted it and they redid that, whatever. But what can you expect? I mean, subpar parts, right? So we'll see if this is any better. Now, in the meantime, we have to hold this thing steady. Right now, we're leaking fluid out of our lawn, which we tried to put in a bag, a little baggie, to try to prevent some of that. But you can only stop it for so long. So what we're going to try to do is put this on temporarily. Just one bolt, few threads in, just to get it to hold down, so we're not fighting it constantly. So we got that one bolt in. We can go ahead and hook up our line. I find that you can reuse some of these copper crush sleeves that come with these. I've used the same one for the duration of the vehicle one time. But yeah, here's the one we had on there before. And we're just going to put it on here and crush it down further. There. We get our ratchet. What is that? 13 or 14? What is this?
14.
14, yeah. So ours is a 14. Maybe yours would be. And we need to make sure that fluid is constantly coming out of this line because we don't want air to get in it. So that means if fluid's coming out, air's not getting in. Get it? We kept refilling our fluid under the hood so it would never run out on us because we don't want a dry line. Okay, because we don't want to go through bleeding all the air out of the whole damn system. All right, that's it. So we put that on good and tight. We're going to let that sit, and we'll get back to you in a minute. All right, so we're going to pull the axle out now. We still have the caliper on. This is the new one that we bought. If you're doing brakes, we should be already done here. Back here, with the emergency brakes, we didn't get to that yet, but we're going to get to it once we remove the hub. We're also going to be able to see whether we could pull any of these brakes apart without removing the hub. Right now, we have the rear end jacked up a little bit on one side of the vehicle, a little bit higher than the other side. The purpose of that is so that when the oil tries to drain out of the axle housing here, we have it a little bit higher, so hopefully it'll all drain down in that direction over there, and we won't lose a lot of oil when we pull this axle out here. And make a note to yourself, we need at least 3 feet or more to pull this axle out. So wherever you jack the vehicle up at, make sure you have that room to be able to slide this axle out 3 feet at least. So we're going to remove these bolts, and these are the 14 millimeter. And we're going to put our impact socket on there and remove these, and then we'll pull this axle out. Then we'll finish up the brakes after. So if you need to see us put the brake pads and all back on after changing this caliper, then you can see that toward the end of the video. You just fast forward to that, whatever. But in the meantime, we'll get back. We're going to get this off, and we'll get back to you. All right, now our axle maybe tap a little bit, loosen up. There we go. Okay, how much oil do we have here? Not a lot. This is just regular rear end fluid here. This is probably 80, 90 weight. And it's not excessively dripping out. That's what you want, a couple drips like that. When there's a lot in it, it'll come up higher then and it'll start dripping out. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Just for the heck of it, you might want to note the rotation of the axle the way that it was. I think ours was here. Let's take a look. Got a little marking here, a little paint here. You don't have to, but you can. I just marked it. So I marked where the axle is. You don't have to mark it. I'm sure it doesn't matter. I just did it just in case. I mean, I've done it both ways, and I haven't noticed a difference yet. So, I just figure I'm putting it back on the way that it came off. All right, here we go. So we got this sucker out. All right, so you may or may not have one of these expensive tools. If you don't, you want to get the right tool for this job. I'd say the right tool, meaning a tool that they marketed to make it easier. This is what it is. 2 3/4. Part number this. W83008. Okay. And that's a PT brand. That's a whatever, cheapo brand. So it goes in like this, and these little teeth push back on hold on to these ring. At the same time as they hold on to this ring, they push in these other fingers. Now you don't need all that, okay? So you don't need hardly any of that. I could take this off just simply by using this screwdriver right here, counterclockwise, right? So I'm not even going to use this tool. I'm just showing you that I have it. It does make the job a little easier. Watch. This is my palm. I'm tapping this with my palm. Okay, I'm going counterclockwise. Okay. Now it gets easy. This is where you unscrew that and take it off. Okay. This is the locking ring assembly, or whatever they want to call it. You can take it off, right? Essentially, all this does is lock the bearings in place and lock the hub on. All right. So yeah, that's all it's made out of right there. It's just some threads, a locking ring, that's gasket sealer, and then you just to tighten it, it's the reverse of what I just did. And you got that little tab right there that fits in here in a keyway slot type of deal, and your bearings, of course, there. Let's pull this thing out. Got your bearing. Here we go. This is our front bearing. This is our rear bearing, this big one here. See that? And this is the seal. Get that. Right. I didn't feel any problems with the bearing before, so there was no suspicion that there was a bearing problem. But to have all this gook that we already sprayed out once, looks like we'll have to spray it out again. Is it helpful to take this hub off to do this job? Absolutely, because it's almost impossible to remove these brakes with the hub still on, because it's really close and it's in the way. So to do the emergency brakes, you kind of have to take the rear hub off. Some people may find ways around it. Maybe if they get in here, tighten little springs and remove brake shoes. But if you need to know how to go back together, take a look at a close illustration at this, because sometimes you can't back up and take an overall here. You know, sometimes just a good picture helps, right? So you got this face, and remember, this is the passenger side. So you got this blue spring at the top here is pulling everything tight here. These are the springs here, and then, you know, per the pull brake cable, which is probably up here, right here, coming in, pulls a lever, spreads these brakes apart, and that's basically what you got. Spreads them apart and stops inside there's a brake shoe. These are two brake shoes, okay? And you have this sensor right here. Remember, we have another video where we replaced one of these, but we didn't have to pull all this apart. We just did it from the back side, because there's your bolt right there, the bolted in. So that's a sensor for your you know, your four-wheel traction control crap. And here's your little readout right here. So there's another reason why you don't need all this oil floating around in here. Also, the biggest issue of all is anybody who knows dealing with these and having these kind of issues with oil spraying out, the number one problem is that oil sprays out of here, it gets on the brake rotor. And when you go to apply the brake, it's slick, and in the vehicle ABS sensor thinks that the brake is slipping or the wheel is slipping, and it makes adjustments for other brakes, and your brakes don't work very well. So your ABS is constantly going off in crazy ways because you got one wheel spraying oil and compromised because it's too slick for the pads to stop, right? So that's another reason to change these seals soon as the sign of any kind of leak is happening. You don't want to keep dealing with, you don't want to have to deal with that. So yeah, this is an insert style. Also, it's important to note that these seals are different. Give me that cheap AutoZone seal. Okay, so we got an AutoZone seal here, and they are different part numbers, right?
That's the part number right there.
Okay, so that's a part number there, but the part number on this seal, right here.
Huh.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if it's the right deal, huh? Anyway, so yeah, this is the seal. Look how it goes in. You got to tap it in past that. You can't tap on that rim.
No, you can't.
You can't tap on that rim. You got to tap beyond that here. So you almost need a race or something just this big around to help you put this in so you don't damage it. So there again, now you need another special tool, right? And why wouldn't you just take a 2x4 and put it across here and just beat the whole thing down? You could do that, but, you know, I wouldn't necessarily take my chances in doing that.
It's different color too. What if it's the wrong seal? Because they have with traction and without traction.
Well, this is supposed to with traction. Yep, so we're going to take our trusty seal remover, which is our expensive flathead. Not expensive anymore, it's well used, but yeah. We're going to take our flathead, our Klein flathead, and we're going to beat it in there. There we go. Nice expensive seal remover. Yeah, that didn't want to cooperate too much, but anyway, you get the gist of what we got to do here. Okay, got it pretty quick. Second go round. Looks like somebody did replace this seal. We got like an RTV type silicone type stuff here. Let's check this bearing while we're in here. Bearing looks okay. The part number anyway.
Or NTN or something.
So that's the inner bearing. I'm not looking at any pits. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, I don't feel any grinding, so that feels good to me. I just need to clean this crap out here. All right, so we got some brake cleaner. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up a little. We already wiped off most of the gasket, old RTV or whatever that is. It's almost like a glue, like a shop glue of some kind that they used. Doesn't even feel like RTV. Degrease. That's what we want to do. Kind of just want to degrease it. All right, so we cleaned all this with brake cleaner. Got some gasket maker here. It's not the best stuff. In fact, it's too thin, but we're going to use it anyway because right now that's all we have. We did a little research and couldn't find any. Not enough people are doing this, so we don't. I haven't seen anybody doing this on YouTube. Not the seal for the traction control for the '06 and up. I think it is when RSC came out, Advancetrac. So yeah, we got these little notches here for Advancetrac, right? For traction control. And this is a special seal. Like I said, it's different. This is a $22, $25 seal. It's not your typical $9 seal. So it does go this way. So you can go both ways. And that's what's confusing about this, because you don't really know which way to put it in. But it does, I believe, go this way for one reason, even though there's no pictures, no illustration of which way it goes online that I've found on pretty short notice. The key indicator of which way to put it is that spring right there. You see that spring? That little spring that's responsible for keeping the rubber taut. We want to put that spring down, always facing towards your oil. So which way the oil's rushing in, right? So since the oil's going to fill up this chamber and bearing set, then that would face down like that, and then of course the hub would go through here. So it fit on the hub like that, right? So that would be a safe bet to put it that way. So yes, the way that whoever had this on before, or whether it was factory or not, was the right direction. So we know if we put this flush, it'll be okay, because it won't be contacting way in the back here, up the valley here, and that's what we want to avoid anyway. So yeah, what I'm saying is it won't damage our seal if we leave it hanging up a little bit flush. I got an old clean out lid for an old sewer clean out. We're going to use that flat piece of metal to beat this down. Look at this runny shit.
Yeesh.
I mean, how do you work with this? It's like working with contact cement. It's like crap.
How could they even call that
gasket maker? It looks like runny gasket mess. Anyway, I don't want it going down in my bearings, but I don't mind this thin shit getting on the surface here. I just don't want it in my bearings, even though the bearings will just chew it up and spit it out and not cause a problem. All right, I believe that's enough. Plenty enough there. It's going to run down a little, but I don't think it's enough to interfere. Now, mistake that everybody makes accidentally, it's very innocent. Don't forget to put your bearing back in. I took this out earlier, and if I wouldn't have thought about it, if I wouldn't have caught myself, I could have been easily tapping this seal in, only to find myself needing to remove it again right away and damaging it because I have to put a bearing in first. Okay. Now, the only thing we need to do is check this out, right? All right. All right, we're going to unscrew our big bolt and take our caliper back off out of the way. Now, we still got these nasty shoes on here, right? So when you pull the e-brake, like I said, when you pull the e-brake, these spring out. And I already showed you how they work, sort of, how the setup, in case you need to replace them, to get them off. Obviously, you pull these pins here, look. These pins, you just pull those clips out, and then you can replace these brakes. Okay, these shoes. I'm pretty sure you don't replace these. These aren't replaced very often, and an auto parts store probably doesn't get a very high demand for these. So it's probably something that's a special order garbage crap thing that, probably annoys you. It's going to annoy you. So we're going to make sure that these are set correctly. Let me get a rotor. Stop that. We'll get a rotor and we'll come back. All right, so we want to clean the rotor and the shoes up. Okay, so the rotor and the shoes. So we cleaned up the drum portion on the rotor, and then cleaned up the shoes, and we're gonna try to mate this like this, right? So look at what we got inside, right? We got a little space inside there, and it's pretty loose. And that's kind of what we want. We probably could go a little tighter with this, so that when the brakes spring out, they hit real, soon. And that's your adjustment. Your adjustment for that is right here. Right here, these teeth. So you can turn these teeth one way, 2 or 3 clicks, it'll spring it out a little bit. You can do them the other way, and it will bring them in. It's easier to spring these out than it is to spring them in. Okay? Now, back here, there's a little piece right here. Usually these are rubber, and you can take these out from the back side and get a screwdriver in here and click it. Click, 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 and make it tighter from behind the vehicle. That's the way it was in the old days. It should be still the way that it is now. We're not going to adjust these like that. And if we do adjust these outward, I want to do it one more time. Let me see if I can get a click on this. 2 clicks. And I think that pushed me out a little bit. And that's about all I really want on this. Unless you have been driving around with your damn emergency brake on, it should be fine. Unless you use your emergency brake a lot. Like you have a lot of hills and stuff in the area, or there's some universal purpose that you use an emergency brake. All in all, the shoes are enough to stop this truck here and here. That's all you need for an emergency brake. They're fine. We are going to start putting this thing back together, starting with the hub. And we got some grease here that came with the seal, naturally. I want to make sure that there's enough on here to go around. I think it will. I think it'll be fine. Look at that. Look how close those tolerances are. Okay. Okay. Here we are. We're going to put our keeper back on. Slot. Only let you put it one way, really. Get it started in there. All right, good. Here is where I'm going to use this tool. I don't have to. Like I said, you don't have to. You can use a screwdriver. All right. There you go. You kind of start to get tight right there.
So do you have a torque specification for this?
Not really. I'm sure there is somewhere. Just like you do a front hub. You almost go hand tight, then you go a little bit past, and then you back off a little bit, right? So you want to do it a little bit tighter than this, then you want to back off. So somewhere in between my super hand tight and the way that feels. See how that's starting to drag? It's not. It doesn't want me to. It doesn't want to keep going. I want it. When I took it off, it was a little tighter than that. So you might want to make note to how tight it is. The idea is to get it tight enough not to create too much friction, but not to ever have any real play. It's going to get crazy because it's going to wear in a little bit, just a tiny bit, but not a lot, not as much as people think. But I might just get the book just for that video for people and just say, but I'm satisfied with this right now. But for the video only for the video purposes. So somebody doesn't say, please the people who, want absolute facts. Please those folks, because we just live in a society full of those people, and they're everywhere, and they just don't really trust things. They're just like absolutely fact checking, right? So let's just take a look at a book. We'll look at the Chiltons and the Haynes, and then we'll see what some online forums say, or some people, you know. All right, so we consulted a couple of different places, and we're at Haynes now. Haynes is saying the same thing that's being echoed here and there. 65 to 75 foot-pounds. So you would tighten, I guess, tighten it all down after you put bearings or whatever you're putting in it, back to 65, 75. Then you'd back off a quarter turn. Then you would tighten it 15 to 20 foot-pounds of torque. That's kind of crazy. I guess they're assuming that, you know, you might need to mash all the grease and oil through the bearings. So go 65 to 75 foot-pounds. Then back off a quarter turn. That means let the bearings back off the pressure and then go 15 to 20 because you've already pre-smashed them. We can try their method and see what happens, but I have a feeling that it's going to, you know, kind of either give us almost the same result as we have, or it might be too binding tight or too loose. Let's find out and see. Okay, so we're going to use an old school torque wrench. Very old school. Here you go. Cameraman, tell me when I get to 65, 75. I don't feel like looking down there.
All right, go ahead. 40, 50, 60, 70. 65, 70, you just got to.
Okay. So look, this thing's kind of hard to turn, but you can still turn it.
1/4 of a turn.
So quarter of a turn would be, let's see. They seriously saying back off a quarter of a turn. That would be right here.
Yeah.
This position, correct?
Pretty much. Right there.
Right?
Right, just about right there.
Okay. Right. Now go what?
15 to 20. That's 10, 15, 20. Right there is about 20.
Okay, so I don't even know what that was. That was some funny clicks there, right? I don't know what that is.
That
Honestly,
was about 20.
I don't know what that is, though. It would be easier if they just told me, you know, this.
Few clicks.
Yeah, there's actually no good way to do this, honestly. I'm just going to keep it there. You don't really know what to do there.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny, dude.
Can't set your torque when you keep clicking.
All right. I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to surface here. Try and seal this front. The front part of this leaking is just as bad as the rear seal leaking. I don't think that the only spot you got to seal up is the rear, because trust me, the front of this thing leaks, man. You got big mess coming out of all these screw holes, all over the rim, all over the place. All right, here we are with our axle. Now, I want to leave him sticking out like this for a while. Look. See this? Look at our gasket here. I'm going to clean the gasket right here on the outside. We're going to finish cleaning out one more time, then we're going to wipe this down, and we'll get back to you when we put the sealer on. All right, so we got our gasket sealer. You can see that runny nightmare of a mess. And look here, inside here, see? So keep this gasket. Don't get rid of it, because it serves, if anything, as a spacer. Okay. Here we are. Look. Okay, we're going to go at about 60 psi here. Starting out. These are between 90 and 120 foot-pounds of torque. So I did those to 60 4 of them, and I'm going to do the other 4 to 60, and then 120 or 100, 90 or 95, whatever, 100. See, there's a big range between 90 and 120. That's because these are big coarse thread bolts. There isn't really that much. There really isn't that much to tighten these things down. Yeah, a note on a review on these damn Walmart sockets. They fit really tight. All right, so we got about between 90 and 120. That's probably about 100 foot-pounds. Yeah, that's good. Now we have to put our bracket back on. All right, we're just putting our caliper bracket on. Our bracket. We took our caliper loose here. The new caliper that we got. I say new reman caliper. This is where we are. I'm going to tighten this down to about 60 to 80 foot-pounds, something like that. And we'll come back and we'll put our brakes in place, and then we'll be done. All right, so we just snapped our brake hardware in place. We got to put our old pads back on because we didn't get any new pads. And I really don't like the fact that pad's worn down than the others, but because that caliper was sticking, the one on there before, this is what we got. That much further than that. Yeah, so that makes me understand that later we have to come back with some pads and replace these, and we're going to do that. Get one started first, like this. Looks like this one wants me to get this one started. Come in here like that. All right, so we push our pins in. Look at that pin shake like that. I guess that one's loose too. Shame on that auto parts store for that. Looks like we'll be taking this one back too. Especially if it looks like that. Okay. All right, so we're at the end here, and we're just going to do this and tighten this caliper up. We're going to go inside and bleed the brakes. You can start by undoing this line right here, undoing this bleeder valve here, and leave it open for now while you're working on it, which is something I did not do. I should have done. This would be a 3/8 inch. Looks like a 3/8 wrench. As soon as stuff starts to drain out, then you got a head start on bleeding this caliper. You would pump it 3 times, hold it to deal, you know, then release it three more times, hold it, release it, let somebody keep holding it, then tighten it back up, and then 3 more times. And you know, there are some people out there that don't know how to bleed brake, so I guess maybe I'll do a little bit of the video on that. All right, we'll get back to it. I just realized I forgot to put the bottom shield or the backside shield on. But I'm putting that on now. We'll get that done, and we're gonna come back for the bleeding. All right, so we're gonna bleed the brakes. So what you want is a guy inside the vehicle, or girl, whoever. You want them on the brake pedal, and you want to tell them pump it 3 times and hold it. And that's what they're supposed to do. And then while they're doing that, while they're holding it, you release that and let the air out of the line. I know many of you know what we're doing here, but there are some people that have never done this before, never seen this before. All right, go ahead. 2, 3. All right. So our guy's holding the brakes. Anytime you're opening it now. Y'all heard the air come out, a little hiss of air. So you want to get this tight again. Okay. Rip that rubber piece out of the way. All right. Go ahead. So now your person's gonna 2, 3, and then you're gonna There you go. So air came out and liquid started coming out. Now you want to do that about two or three more times, just to make sure the air is out of the line. Remember, brake fluid is caustic, so it can, burn your skin, but I haven't had a real problem with it yet. But it can if you leave it on there for a long period. So just don't get it all over yourself. All right, go ahead. See, a little air still came out there. That was like our third time. All right, that should do us for now. I'm going to do it one more time later, but off camera, but that's enough, I would say. Got to get a rim on here, tighten it up so the caliper's tight. The rotor sits straight and flat. All right, we're going to do the most important part of this video. If you're still here, good. We saved the best for last, the test. Now the idea is to test this, see if we have the same symptoms as we had before, right? So we had, this wheel was sticking, okay? We were almost unable to spin the tire. In other words, the brake was locking up the caliper. Now this is 2 calipers, okay? This is the 3rd caliper. So the original caliper did it. We discovered it about 2 weeks ago. We changed that caliper. Up until 2 days ago or a day ago, we had a caliper on there for about a week or so, and it didn't solve the problem. It got better, and we were able to spin this wheel. And the way we're testing this is we're putting it on a jack, and we're doing one wheel at a time and putting it in neutral so we can spin just one side, the spider gears and the drive shaft. So put it up on one side at a time, and that's probably the best way to test this. That way we can isolate each wheel and discover which side is a problem. Here's another problem that we had. Another problem we had with testing this side first and then the other side, the driver's side. The passenger side would spin in drive at about 5 to 10 miles an hour. In other words, just leaving it on a jack, sitting in a driver's seat, putting it in drive, the wheel would spin, and then we would try to apply the brake, and on this side, it would do that anti-lock crap where the brake pedal didn't want to stop the wheel. The driver's side stopped fine. The passenger side, this side, we fooled with, wouldn't stop. I suspect that was because we had that leak, so we had that oil residue everywhere. That was getting involving itself with stopping the pad from making a good adhesion to stop the rotor. So it was too slick, and that oil was causing that problem. And so that was causing our anti-locks to be fooled, to think that this wheel was slipping or going out of control, or our traction control to believe that this wheel was on ice for some reason, and it wouldn't allow us to apply a brake. So that's the simulation for this wheel that we had a problem with. And then the other wheel we had no problems with. But this side going back again, we had a problem with that brake dragging at the same time. So now we do the test. Start the vehicle, put it on, don't ever touch the gas pedal. Start it, put it in neutral. The first thing I want you to do is put it in neutral right now so I can spin it by hand and see if it's free. Go ahead. Let's try that.
Engine running?
No engine running first. Not at first.
All right.
Just go straight to neutral, because you could start this vehicle in neutral.
Neutral.
All right. Do you have your foot on the brake?
Yeah. Off now.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's so much easier. It's one hand. One hand's on the camera. The other hand's on the wheel. Oh, yeah, it was nothing. Hit the brake again. Let's see if it sticks.
Yeah. Off.
Hit the brake, man.
Brake on.
All right. Let it go.
All right. Off.
Oh, yeah. That's free. We can change those pads now with confidence to know they're not going to wear down funny. All right. Next test. Start it in neutral.
All right, here we go.
All right, go to drive. Step back. All right, apply brake. All right, let it go. All right, apply brake hard. Oh, yeah. All right. Back to neutral. Brake. That's the transmission, actually, believe it or not. Transmission in neutral naturally wants to spin forward. Okay. That's it. Yeah, you can kill it. That's it. It just passed the test. So all of our problems were involving that oil and that sticky caliper. Both of those things. I'm guessing that that caliper heated up over time. The pads heated up, the rotor heated up, and as it got hot, it probably created more of a problem. In other words, like a slick surface, and it was burning oil off as it went, so we couldn't tell. And it was probably burning off oil on the inside pad because that was closest to the oil spraying up off of that rotor, and it was burning it off before we could discover it on the rim. So yeah, there again, we could not tell because it was not all over the rim. All right, y'all. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to see crazy stuff in the future or crazy stuff from the past. All right.